Nicole. Hey, what's up?
Not much. How are ya?
Okay, where are you sitting?
I'm in my driver's seat.
Are you a van lifer?
Yeah.
Oh, you're so much cooler than I ever knew. We are as a family in love with van life.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Have you guys been traveling or?
We have done a lot of traveling and we have 5 kids. So we've never done a van, but one of my daughters is actually like trying to figure out how do I buy a van? How do I build out the Sprinter? Like, how do I do this whole thing? So
Nice.
it's just hard to find. I mean, yeah, it's hard to
I
find
went
it.
with a Ford. I love my Transit and I built mine out myself. So, because I wasn't sure if it was going to be for me or not. I was initially just like Airbnb-ing and using
Yeah.
a vehicle to get from A to B. And then I was like, well, let's try this out and see what happens. And yeah, I didn't expect for it to actually last, but yeah, it's been a while now. I've been in a van.
I love it. Oh my gosh. There's so much. Okay. Where do you want to go with this conversation today? We're
I
not
am
we're not live
open.
yet, by the way. I'm gonna
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I'm open to whatever you think is going to add value. I've listened to a number of your podcast episodes and I'm just showing up. So whatever it is you think that would help your listeners about the most, I'm here for it.
Do you want to talk about your life?
Um, in what way? I want to add value. So, I don't know what it is that inspired you about when we met for you to invite me on. Um, I think that for me to like talk about my life story or something isn't so exciting, but maybe if you want to talk about the questions or
I
go
want to
ahead,
talk about
you're
the
the boss.
questions. Yes.
Okay.
And do you want me to stay away from your current life situations?
Um, you know what? I I feel like um I feel open to talking about anything with the caveat that I still am. I mean, I've been in like all last week. I was in doctor's appointments. Later today, I have a doctor's appointment to see what's going on with the tumor. I don't know if it's cancer or not. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what's real in terms of prognosis. So I was told I wouldn't live past 3 months. That I'm okay talking about. Um, I'm okay talking about pretty much everything, but I don't want to make the show about me, if that makes any sense. I want to
Yes.
share whatever is going to be relevant and supportive to others. And I think that when people recognize that we only have today, wherever they are in their lives, whether or not they've been given some kind of prognosis or not, I- you know, I think that's the relevant piece. I think most people don't really consider um, the most, their, I think most people get cloudy around what really matters often, especially when they are in the hustle and in the creation mode. And then people are shocked when somebody dies or shocked when, a lot of things that have come up in the past year, like celebrity suicides and things like that. And some of these people are extremely successful and yet feel very alone.
Mhm.
So yeah, I trust that you're going to lead wherever we go. And I'll just join you there.
Okay.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Like for me, like a lot of times people want to talk about oh well, what's next for you? Right now I'm just in the present and that's where I've
No,
been for a while. So
I've never asked that question in an interview.
cool. I
Oh,
haven't done an interview in so long.
oh,
So
whatever. Oh my
I'm a little
gosh.
bit noise. I'm a little bit nervous.
Are you serious? You haven't been
Oh
on
yeah.
interviews? Because you've
No,
been
not
like,
in so long.
oh,
In
really?
like I think the last interview I did was in 2020. Maybe I did one in 2021. I'm not
Oh, I'm
sure.
so excited that you're back on the microphone. I know.
Yeah, me too.
The very
And I
microphone I held like a week or two ago. How cool.
exactly. Yeah, and I hope to do more interviews. It just again it depends on, if people are flexible and can get me in quickly, yay. I'm not putting a lot on my schedule beyond like a week or two and of
Yeah.
course doctor's appointments take precedence. So,
Yeah. Okay.
okay.
So if I was going to describe you in like a couple of sentences, what would you say about yourself? And don't give me all this professional crap. Nobody cares about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So, well, let me see. So I will tell you my title that I've now chosen because it just so much bleh, over all the time. I just say visionary. I say personal advisor to visionary leaders. So at the end of the day, I mean, I've been coaching for 30 plus years. I've been, I've had it done for you publicity agency. I've been a correctional officer. I've done a million things as far as like jobs. And I love studying people and humanity and connecting and all of that. So I'm not really sure how to put that into a little bit about me. I travel. I've always traveled.
You
I
love
don't
it.
know.
Okay.
I help people. I help people get out of the way. I mean, you know what that's all about. So
Mhm.
I help people to realize the truth behind what it is that they put forward, right? A lot of people
Yeah.
struggle with that, connecting with who they are and what they do. And so that's a sweet spot for me. And I've done that with extremely successful business owners and celebrities and foster children and criminals and all of the things.
Humans,
So
just humans.
humans,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. So, okay, let's rock and roll. So I think the fact that you've been given a diagnosis that most people would consider a relatively short window
Mhm.
is really meaningful to the topic. Am I okay saying that?
Absolutely.
Can I say a date on the window, like 90 days, or do you want me to stay away from that? Because that's not.
I was told in September that if I didn't get a particular surgery, I would not make it past 3 months.
Okay.
So if you want to say 90 days, that's fine. 3 months, yeah. I did. I'm past 3 months. um, and yeah, what did I want to say about that? So, but my perspective is like I already felt for a long time like something was wrong. Um, and it still is. So I mean, I've dealt with lupus my whole life, but they didn't know it was lupus. So I still think, I hope, whatever. So I have a rheumatologist appointment on the 21st of February. And I've got the endocrinologist appointment later today to look at the tumor. So I don't know what's real versus what's not real at this point. But as a child, my little brother, when I was 10 years old, got diagnosed with cancer. So I think my perspective has always been such that I live for the day. I don't
Mhm.
plan too much in the future. I don't put too much credence into the past. It's like today is the day. And so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Van life.
wherever you want to go, whatever you want to say, we'll go there.
I love it. Okay, let's do this.
All right.
By the way, I love the conversation before the podcast episode. Always. This is the best conversation. Okay,
Okay.
let's go to the second best conversation.
Awesome.
Okay, Group Coach Nation. And maybe I Share Hope. I'm kind of curious about this. We might launch this on both podcasts. We have not done an I Share Hope podcast in 4 or 5 years, an episode. For you I Share Hopers, if you're hearing this, it's good to be back. For you Group Coach Nation folks, we've interviewed people that have done extremely meaningful things and had a real impact on other humans in the I Share Hope podcast. I stopped doing that show about 5 years ago. Nicole Holland is someone I met at a PodFest conference a few weeks ago in Orlando, Florida. Today is February the 6th. It's a Monday. It is 10:09 a.m. Central. I'm dating this one because it matters. Noelle and I have had multiple hours of conversations. She's currently sitting in her van. Hi, Noelle. She's a van lifer, which makes me super jealous. And Noelle and I have had a lot of time to process what we're about to talk about. I wouldn't come into this cold. I would only come into this one with background in a relationship. So Noelle, thanks for your time. And thanks for the relationship, even though it's been short over a couple of weeks.
It's been amazing. Thank you for having me. And it's Nicole, just so you know.
Did I say Nicole? What did I say? I said,
Noel.
but Noel, I just said Noel. Oh my gosh.
It's all right.
So we don't edit these things. So
You were
Nicole,
calling me Nicole until you started introducing the
oh
episode.
really? Then I
It's
said
all
it.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is Nicole. And I think that's just where my brain is like I'm processing 1,000 miles a minute right now, just going into what to say next. So Nicole is someone who's advised a lot of humans from a really high level performance standpoint and super successful to people who are on the down and out that we would consider people who are looking for their second, third, fourth, or fifth chance. Foster kids, inmates, celebrities, everybody in between. That's a really cool experience. And she has this depth and heart for it because she has a unique view of the shortness and the temporary nature of life. And that we only have a certain number of days on this planet to do something awesome for ourselves and for others. And the reality of this is that that's your reality and my reality. Right now, talking to her, I'm like thinking through, this is my reality. I could have a long time or a short time. You listening in right now, it's your reality, long time or short time. Not trying to be morbid here, just trying to be real. What are you going to do with what you got left? So, Nicole, here's how we met. I'm just going to set this up. You're at the conference and you were doing these 4 questions and you were asking each person these 4 questions about basically what's going to happen in the next 90 days of your life. I'd like for you to ask these questions, and then I'm going to go back and we're going to give our audience a second to pause and answer their own questions and then come back like they're the ones answering. But you've been able to ask this question to a lot of people and you have interesting feedback now. We could talk about that too. But first, can you just give a 60-second, hey, how you doing? And a little about like where you're sitting right now. You're in a van, which is so awesome. Like tell just what's going on around you in the parking lot you're in.
Well, I'm parked at Starbucks because I like Starbucks for their quality Wi-Fi and their coffee. Um, so a number of years back, decided after a long time in airports and hotels and conference rooms and speaking all over the place, I didn't like being away from home, from my cats, from my comforts, and travel was a big part of my career. And I also love traveling. And so I decided like, hey, what if I just, yeah, I guess initially it was, let me get rid of my properties and kind of go more minimalist again. I used to travel around the world and I hadn't done that in a while, but I did it without attachments. And so I thought, well, let's get rid of everything. The place that I had purchased that I was living, it was like a little retreat and it was peaceful. It was right on the water. And then construction started and they started building a new development in my backyard. And so I was like, you know what, this isn't where I want to be, but I don't know where is. So let's just travel. So I sold everything. And then my last property closed on February 20th, 2020. And so by the time I got back down, I was in Ontario, Canada. And by the time I got back down to Vero Beach, Florida, it was just in time for borders to close and all sorts of things for COVID. So my intention of like traveling, spending a month here, a month there, Airbnb-ing it basically, definitely like everybody when COVID happened, everybody's plans sort of went whoop. That's not going to happen. So yeah, so I stuck around in Florida for a while, and then I hit the road. And after a short time, decided that I'll try this van life thing. So currently, I am in Florida, the Sunshine State, and I have a van, and I travel, and that's
I'm
just how I live my life now.
so excited about that. Like that is so alluring. My family and I have talked about this many times. I think Jill and I will end up in a van in 3 or 4 years. We still have
Once
some
the
high
kids
schoolers we
are,
got to get rid of,
yeah.
but once they're in school, we'll be taking semesters out. Yeah.
You know, it's fabulous. I wound up spending the summer up in Maine. I'd never been to Maine before. When I traveled when I was younger, I traveled overseas, and that was fabulous. And now, I mean, there's just so much of our country to see, and I really appreciate, rather than being a tourist and like popping through somewhere, I love to sort of insert myself into community and get to know. Like when I was in Maine, I had the opportunity to volunteer at the world's largest lobster festival. And so I got to cook lobsters, and I got to engage with the communities up there. And that's just, I love doing that. I love getting to know the people where I go and the culture and the food. I love food. So
Okay, I love it. I love all of this. Okay, let's step back to September before we get into our questions.
sure.
September is 5 months ago.
hmm
You were given some news. Can you give us like literally a 15-second synopsis of the news and what it means to you?
Sure. So I had been so I've dealt with chronic health issues my whole life, and I was on my way south from Maine, and during that trip I wound up getting quite disoriented and feeling very, very sick. Now, before I left on the trip, while I was in Maine, I was quite ill, having left Canada when I did, and not having gone back in the time that I needed to. I lost my residency, which also means I lost my insurance. So I was traveling without insurance. I knew something was up. I knew something was going on, but I just kept, mind over matter and figured I'd be fine, because at the end of the day, we're always fine. And as it turned out, I needed to go to the hospital. And while I was in the hospital, I did code. And I also they found that I had a tumor. And so, yeah, they told me I had to have that tumor removed, and I didn't have the money to pay for it, and I didn't have insurance to cover it. And they said that if I don't get it removed, I would not last more than 3 months. It was a must do and not a nice to have surgery. And so, I just had to get very serious and real. And I said to the doctor, okay, you're telling me I have to have this, but I don't have in the bank money to do this, and I don't have insurance to do this, and you're telling me you can't do it without insurance or prepayment. So what does that mean? And she said that if I did not take care of it, she didn't think I would last more than 3 months. So, yep, that was about 5 months ago, right? So here I am.
No surgery to date.
No surgery to date. And as I mentioned pre-show, I actually later today have an appointment with a doctor to examine the tumor and see what's going on. So I haven't seen a doctor about this since then. So, yeah.
Just to be clear, everybody, thank you, Nicole. Just to be clear, this is not a conversation about taking vitamins, juicing, or positive mental thinking to get well. All right. That's not where this is going, because I know everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is one of those. This is not one of those. Those are great. This is not one of those. This is a conversation about a very thoughtful person who's been very thoughtful for a long time, having a very real conversation with medical staff and continuing that trek of helping people know where they are and why they're here. So Nicole has been asking people 4 questions. These questions are really freaking good. You've heard them in some ways before, but think through this and be real, folks. So what we're going to do, Nicole, if you can ask the questions just like you asked me when you're recording my version of this. I'm not going to answer. Nicole, you're not going to answer. This is us just asking, let everybody have a chance to answer themselves. So, Nicole, what's question number 1?
Question number 1 is, you've been given 3 months to live. How will you spend it?
Okay, folks, you've been given 3 months to live.
And I would just want to say here too that it's not that I didn't contemplate everything, right? It's just that I recognized in the contemplation that, what's real. We all have our own stories and our own lives and our own situations. And I got a lot of pushback from a friend of mine who said, this is ridiculous, you have to fight. And, that's that person's perspective, but that person has, never had a problem getting health insurance. I went to Canada because of my pre-existing conditions. At the time, I couldn't get health insurance. So
Mhm.
everybody has their own reality, everybody has their own life. I don't have children, I don't have a spouse. So my decision to just live the best life that I could live and focus on what feels good and not focus on what doesn't was 100% my own. So I want to encourage people, when you think about this, try and come from a place not of judgment of others, but really ask yourself this question in your own circumstances, right? You get a diagnosis of that you have 3 months to live, whatever that means to you. How would you spend that? Not necessarily what would you do to fight that.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so if you need to pause this right now, do it. I would encourage you to pause this and write this down. If you're on the move and you can't pause it because you're driving or shopping or running or whatever, pull over at the next little spot you can, take out the notepad on your phone, type a quick answer. Think through this. You've been given 90 days. What are you going to do? And I again want to echo what we just heard, like Nicole saying, don't judge it. Really don't judge it. Don't think about what your priest said. Don't think about what your rabbi said. Don't think about what your spouse would say. Don't think about what your kids would say. Don't think about what you've always heard. Don't think about what somebody else is doing that you agree or disagree with. What are you going to do with the next 90 days? This is a deep question. Pause, write it down. Okay. If you've not written it down yet, please pause. I don't want to leave too much dead time here because we can keep moving. All right, that's your answer. Nobody else's answer, just between you and yourself. Okay, Nicole, question 2.
Question number 2, your life goals that haven't yet been actualized. How would you go about seeing them to fruition, or would you even bother?
Your life goals haven't been actualized. How would you go about seeing them to fruition, or would you even bother? So if we didn't say I would hit those life goals in the next 90 days, if that was a possible reality thing to do, give me some, flesh this out. Like, how do I think about this?
So prior to getting this, prior to the hospitalization, I had a number of bigger projects. One of my big projects that I've seen my whole life and I've been getting closer and closer and closer to is having a media company. That's a big one for me, and also doing commercial development and residential development. These are things that I've worked on in different aspects throughout my life, and also writing a book. There were a number of things that were all lining up so beautifully. Like by spring, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. Like, life's great, and just appreciating. And so many things were coming together. And yeah, when you're not, when I'm not feeling well, like it's really hard. Like the most challenging thing I think is when our mind is fully functional and our body doesn't allow us to do the things that we want to do. Um, at least that's something that I've been noticing and observing and seeing within myself, and also really understanding um, people at end stage of life. People have found, and also for me, what it boils down to is peace. The last thing I want to do is effort every day. And so that was a bit of a shift for me in that, wow, I've got all these open loops and all these opportunities and all these things I could be doing and I would love to be doing. And at sometimes, like right now, I feel really good. But the last 2 days, I couldn't even move out of bed. So, for me, it's this. constant going back and forth of how am I feeling right now, and allowing myself to do what feels good when it feels good, and not forcing myself. Like when we met, I efforted a lot, and I definitely had repercussions, physical repercussions. And actually the evening that I left the event, I wound up going straight to the ER, because I was peeing blood. So like it's one thing to think, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this, and okay, I'm going to bring this to fruition, I'm going to bring this to fruition. And sometimes, I don't know, for me, it was like looking at timelines and going, how can I make the biggest impact in the most easy and light way possible, and release my attachment to results, if that makes any sense. So I think in asking this question, well, I think for me, when this question kind of came to me to ask others, it was like, I'm curious if someone could put themselves in that position, or in that frame of mind of, you've got 3 months left to live. Now, also, I hear things and I don't necessarily own those things, right? So this is a delicate subject right now, because on one hand, I know what the smart doctors have said. I know what's physically going on in my body. There's a number of things physically going on in my body. And then I know that my mind is very, very powerful. So on the one hand, I'm in this sort of waiting period right now, waiting for the smart doctors to give me newer, fresher news,
Mm-hmm.
and believing that I have another 50 years ahead of me, and also thinking, well, I don't want to get too excited about what I know, my mindset. Like I can just keep on going, because again, physically, sometimes I just can't. Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
walk, or I can't, like there's physical things going on. So um
By the way,
for
that right,
me, it's been a weird, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that right there is such an interesting thing for all of us. If we're in our business, our relationships, our personal health, whatever it is, this mindset of where we want to go, and setting that intention, which really has an enormous amount of power over our, not just our brains, but our bodies and our relationships and everything else, versus the other side of the seesaw, so to say, sometimes the hard cold facts that we have to live with. And it's hard to balance those sometimes, and it's hard to know which one's going to win. I don't know how else to say that, but yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's how I was feeling, and I think that's why this question came up, because um we each only can work with our own emotions and through the lenses that we have.
Mhm.
And so I found it to be an interesting question, to pose to others. If you are told you have 3 months left to live, you know in addition to how would you spend it, sometimes we forget we have all these things on our to-do list, and our objectives, and things like, could I have knocked out a book in a month? Probably I could have knocked something out, but I decided for myself, I just wanted to rest. I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I had to accomplish anything. I felt like, I feel like the individual relationships that I get to have are far more important at this stage of my life, right? If things change and I get wonderful news that, I'm healthy and all of this was like a bad dream, well, great, maybe I'll get more
Or write that
ambitious
book.
again. Yeah. But right now, and I've never been all that ambitious. I think for me it's I have big visions, and I've also primarily I really like being in the background. I like working with one-on-one or small groups. I work intimately with people and deeply, and I had been thinking for a number of years, I'm ready to take that to mass, to work with more people and support more people with my gifts. And then at first, when I was given this diagnosis, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to rush because this is really important to me. This is like legacy, right? Like I'm going to make sure that there's something left behind. And as time went on and some days became more and more difficult, I recognized that none of that matters to me.
Mhm.
It's the lives that I've already touched, that have already been changed, that are already living, my foster kids, the youth that I worked with, the adults that I've worked with, the things that I've done in my life, the individual human to human connections that I've had have been impactful, just like humans have impacted my life. And
Mhm.
I think of those people and I appreciate those people. I know that I have been appreciated. And so the numbers and the magnitude of my work began to seem pointless, I guess, in a way.
Mhm.
And again, if things change and I've got a lot more time to go, then great, I can focus more externally. But I've personally just been focusing more internally on getting good with the end and
Yeah.
knowing that I've never really had regrets. I've lived a pretty no regret life. If there's something I felt inspired by, I've gone after it and I've enjoyed it and explored it for as long as I've enjoyed it, sometimes a little bit too long beyond that. But I've always been someone who then recalibrates, if you will, and goes, okay, where am I right now? And how is this feeling right now? And do I want to continue or do I want to do something new? And unlike most people, I think at my age, I just always decided to go, all right, I've mastered this or I've had enough experience. Now, what do I want to do?
I
Now
love
let's
that.
go on a next adventure.
I love that
Yeah,
spirit.
thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so ask the question one more time. We'll give everybody a second to answer. What's the
Okay.
question? Number two.
So assuming you have 3 months to live, oops, wait, I went back. Assuming you have 3 months left to live, your life goals that haven't been actualized, how would you go about seeing them to fruition, or would you even bother?
Okay, everybody answer that question. Will you read the question one more time?
The life goals you have not yet actualized, how would you go about seeing them to fruition, given 3 months to live, or would you even bother?
Okay, pause here if you've not answered. Answer these questions, folks. Write them down. They're going to be meaningful for you and a lot of people around you. I love this. This is so much more real than how are we going to market our business or what's our offer going to look like. We talk about that a lot around here. Okay, Nicole, question 3.
Question 3, what is one thing that you would like to see manifest in its fullness before you leave this world? And this isn't 3 months to live. This is you right now, wherever you're at, before you are gone from the earth. What's one thing that you would like to see manifest in its fullness?
All right, let's pause there. What's one thing you'd like to see manifest in its fullness before you leave the planet? Everybody take a moment to think about that. Write it down. What's one thing you want to see brought to its fruition, however you want to say that, before you're done here? All right, write that down. If you haven't, pause here. And Nicole, I let's go to question 4 because I love question 4, and then we can talk more about question 4. So, question 4, what's the next thing there? Oh, I think
Do you
Nicole.
hope
Okay, hang on,
people will
Nicole. I think
remember?
your internet glitched for just a second. Okay, we're back. So question 4, go for it.
Question 4, after you're gone, what do you hope people will remember about you most?
After you're gone, what do you think people will remember
What do
about you
you
most?
hope
What do you hope?
people will remember about you most?
Write it down, folks. Again, no judgment here. Write down what is most meaningful to you. What do you hope people will remember about you most after you're gone? If that's in 80 years or if that's in 8 days.
And that really is the thing, I think especially since COVID, um, a lot of people have recognized they've lost loved ones or those who they've been maybe a couple of degrees separated from, and people are going, this was a healthy person at the height of their life, this was a parent of 3, this was somebody who was um a triathlon, and they just went out running one day and they died, right? So I've noticed that over these past few years, there have been more and more of these kind of awarenesses, that people recognize as out of the blue, unexpected passings. And there's been a lot of pain around that. Um, and a lot of shame and a lot of blame and a lot of guilt and a lot of stuff, and then also in media, we look at, for people who follow pop culture, there's been a lot of suicides. And I think something that, Chris, before we went live, I mentioned that when I was 10 years old, my brother was diagnosed with cancer. And so at an early age, I was surrounded by children who were dying and their families. And I think that gave me a different perspective than most have. I think anytime you lose somebody significant at an early age, or you're, um, I was speaking with one person at Podfest who I asked these questions to as well, and he lost his father when he was a young child. And so that really informs, I think, what happens for us early on informs how we see the world. And luckily, most people don't deal with death and disease at an early age, or they're sheltered from it. And so oftentimes later on, they don't know how to make sense of things, and death is often something that many people are afraid of. Um, and yeah, I think it's worth taking a look at, um, overall, how are we living our lives every
Mhm.
day, and what really matters. I find that when people value life and they appreciate their own mortality, and that we have a finite amount of time on earth, they're more mindful about how they spend their time and the quality of time that they spend, opposed to the quantity, or just kind of getting things done, getting things checked off. A lot of times parents will say, well, when they're older, they'll say, if I would have been there for my kids more, but I had to work, I had to make money. And so everything can be true. And when we are more aware of how we're spending our day every day, and checking in on why are we doing what we're doing, and is the payoff really what we are telling ourselves, or is there something else going on there? Are we using somebody else's narrative? It allows us to live more present, and it allows us to get clear on, I'm doing this activity because this is my value, not this is the value that I'm going to get from this, but I'm doing this because I value the everything around it. Does that make any sense?
It makes so much sense. So ask question 4 again, then I want to add something to it so we can go away with some action.
Absolutely. After you're gone, what do you hope people will remember about you most?
Okay, so if you haven't written that down yet, pause, write it down. What do you hope they remember about you most? Noelle, this is Nicole. I keep going to Noelle. My mind is
Just
going a
between
thousand
us, you
miles.
can call me Noelle forever.
There's
I'll
another
know it.
Noelle who's been on our show. She lives in Canada, by the way.
Yeah.
Y'all are really similar in some really cool ways. And just talking to you reminds me of her. She's a wonderful person. She would be a van lifer. I wonder if she's ever done that. I should ask her. So where we're at with this in Group Coach Nation and with I Share Hope, it's very actionable. I like actionable stuff. So here at Group Coach Nation, we say do work, get results. Just do the right work. We are not fans of the hustle culture. We're not like go work 80 hours a week and exhaust yourself and go like that's not, no, life's too short. As we are talking about today, do the stuff that matters to you and then to those that you love and want to impact. Like do what matters, right? So same with I Share Hope, very actionable steps of how to find hope, how to use hope, how to be part of that hope continuum. Now, what are you going to do about it, folks? I guess is what I have to ask. Talking to you, Nicole, like over the past couple of weeks has been extremely refreshing and not at all interestingly, not at all a heavy conversation, not a sad conversation at all, but a conversation that's been very empowering. Because you're one of those people who's been focused on what's the right thing for you now for quite a while. Most people just don't think that way. And now you're at a place where you have a story that everybody looking in from the outside, and maybe yourself, you're like, the rest of it are like, okay, yeah, but if I knew it was coming, I mean, I'd make some changes, but it's not coming. I mean, I've got another 40 years, whatever. None of us freaking know that. You don't know that, Nicole. You don't know if there's a.
I could get hit by a car and be gone tomorrow,
Yeah.
or I could live
Yeah.
forever. I mean,
it's true. Yeah. And the one thing the doctors have told you now might not be the thing, because it could be the car, right? It's so out there. So I guess if I could leave everybody with this, dear listeners, what are you going to do about it? Like, don't go all doom and gloom, because obviously that's not the conversation tone here. Nicole and I aren't going all doom and gloom. Go with the reality of time is ticking. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a thing, but it is a thing, and it's something you can't avoid. So what are you going to do today? I'm not asking like, everybody go sell their businesses and give it all to charity, or like, because you don't know what the next day and the next year and the next decade will look like, but you do know that you have a limited number of days. And you do know that you want to be involved in certain things in that time period. And you want others you love to be involved in certain things in that time period. So what do you want that to look like? And I think that is the big takeaway here. If everybody is going to put something down on paper, it's what's next. Would you like to close with anything, Nicole, or is that where you'd leave the whole goal of all these questions and the process you're going through?
thank you for asking, and thank you for this opportunity, Chris. I think it's a great, I think it's a great conversation to have, and I think that I thank you for recognizing the opportunity of sharing these questions with oh my gosh, Group Coach
With the
Nation
audience, with
and
everybody.
Hope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, with everybody. Um, there was something we did when I was in school for life coaching about 20 years ago, and it was a challenge, but very impactful. And I'm really grateful to my instructors for having us do this. And so perhaps this will also be a sort of extra bonus activity. Um, we were assigned to write our eulogy as we wished it to be read. And yeah, it was no easy assignment for sure. Um, it was extremely impactful for everyone in the program. And if you feel that you're getting value from being reflective on these questions, I'd encourage you to take that next step and um, really sit down and make some time. Don't fit it in. Don't rush through it, but really take some time, block it out on your calendar, go somewhere where you're not going to be disturbed and where your responsibilities are managed, um, and commune with yourself and get to know your own inner voice. And whatever comes up for you, you know, whether you want to journal it or put it out some way, to really understand who you are at a deeper level, and then write that eulogy as you hope that it will be read whenever you leave this earth, and then do something with it. You know, like Chris is saying, all of this introspection, it's all for us. It's all for our highest and best. And we do have a finite period on this earth, and that's the only one thing that we can be sure about, right? We come into the world and we leave the world. And it's how we live in the world in our day-to-day experiences that makes our life and leaves our legacy.
Mm-hmm. I don't have a better way to close it. Nicole, it's a privilege having you on here. It really is.
Like,
Thank you for, I'm going to say this the right way. I believe, thank you for investing in me and in all of us listening right now. You're investing time. That's precious. And I respect you for that. And I appreciate that as a person.
thank you. The same goes for you and for everybody listening. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. We'll connect Nicole however she wants to be connected down in the comments. We'll let her make that call. Do work, get results on this, folks. If it's just pick the next things, don't be overwhelmed by this. If it's go write your eulogy, do it. If it's put a calendar event every day to tell someone in your life that you love them or appreciate them or are grateful for them, do it. If it's go for a walk in the sunshine once a week, put on your calendar, do it. What is the thing for you? And start there. Don't overwhelm yourself. Start there. You can add another one next month. It's okay. Start where you're starting. Okay. Okay. To everyone, you guys are awesome. Keep crushing it. Keep doing the things you do. Keep loving the people you love. Keep being who you are and keep sharing that with others, because that's what's making our world a better place, is you. So keep doing that. Don't stop doing it. All right, everybody, y'all have a good one. Nicole, thank you.